Now, you may have heard about eating the rainbow or been told to do it as a child. And if the answer to your why didn't feel complete, then this interview is for you.
As the child's brain is wiring up, which is called synaptogenesis, from 3 months before birth to 14 years, there are windows of wiring up, cognition, etc., that open only once.
Welcome to the Frequency Files. Thanks for joining us as we explore the vibrations, forms, and creations and mechanisms behind them that inform the nature of existence. Today's guest, Dr. Hans Parge, comes with a comprehensive background in biomedical research and pharmaceutical drug discovery, working as an X-ray crystallographer and structural biologist. But now, Hans focuses his energy and expertise on wellness, prevention, authentic healthcare, carotenoids, epigenetics, and youthful aging. Hans, you have a very fascinating background, originally as a scientist. Can you tell us how a scientist like yourself, who has worked so deeply in a very conventional space, if that would be the right word, has arrived at this very interesting point of cellular health and carotenoids and all the other amazing work that you do now?
What an awesome and expansive question, Sarah. Where do I start? I was educated back in Ireland, and I showed in secondary school an aptitude for the sciences. And I went initially to university to study physics and ended up with a physical chemistry degree and a PhD in X-ray crystallography. So looking really at the hard sciences. And then life got very interesting when I went on an EMBO fellowship to Berlin, to the Free Universities, to study how to do atomic structural determination of proteins, which are the molecules of life. And that's where I found things to get very interesting. The chemistry is great, but it was a little bit dry. Whereas, the proteins, which are the molecules of life, are fascinating molecules to study. And long story short, I was in that world of protein structure determination through my career with Agron and Pfizer up until 2009, when I took early retirement as part of Pfizer's major restructuring after the failure of Lipitor in clinical trials, or the successor to Lipitor in clinical trials. And that then, at the suggestion or at the opening of a door by an MD, PhD friend, moved me into the world of wellness and prevention, and specifically the world of traditional medicine, starting with a company that was in the direct selling space that was using Ayurvedic principles to formulate their products. One door opens, next door is the next door, and then basically the scientific mindset is one of wow, how does it work? Wow, why is it this way? Always asking why and the next question why. And in 2011, that's when I was introduced to the device that I use to measure people's health objectively, using these carotenoids that you were talking about. And that then opened up another chapter into what are the roles of these molecules in cellular health. And the traditional medicine perspective is that the holistic perspective is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So when you're talking about wellness in general and specifically, you always have that mind, body, spirit bioenergetic thing going on that needs to be all working together and balanced. As an X-ray crystallographer, my default position, of course, has always been that of, like Michael Pollan, of a philosophical materialist, who believes that matter is the basic substance of the universe, and the physical laws that it obeys should explain most phenomena. Yeah? That being said, the mind and nature holds many mysteries towards which that approach can seem unnecessarily dismissive and arrogant. So I keep an open mind, but it's still grounded in the fact that if you don't have the ingredients to make your biochemistry work or the biochemistry of your life work, things ain't going to work out that well. Hopefully that's a long answer to your short question, but
no, that's really interesting. And as you gained, I suppose, a more integrative perspective of the body, health, and human potential, how did your perspectives and the way you relate to your own body and the way you view this structure change in the way that we address it, maybe care for it, or maintain it?
again, it's thanks to the people that have been there as sort of educators and researchers in the field. I could summarize it very simply that the idea is to die young as late in life as possible, having had as much fun as possible, having had as much impact as possible, because we do need to feel that we have been engaged in something worthy, a worthy purpose. That's, as George Bernard Shaw says, that's the true joy in life, to being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one. So that gives you then the reason to get up in the morning and hit the pavements again. The education from Mark Bartlett, who was, when I joined Pharmanex Nu Skin, the global head, the VP of Global Research and Development at Pharmanex, which is the nutritional subdivision of Nu Skin, which Nu Skin acquired in 1998 from the founders, which are my peers in the pharmaceutical industry. But looking at the education from him and the science that Nu Skin and Pharmanex applies to the production of their products, it sort of evolved over the years to include, we've always known it included, that healthy living includes good nourishment and good antioxidant protection. With the sequencing of the human genome, we've also generated lots of tools that allows us to understand what are the gene expression component. Remember, are you familiar with gene expression, Sarah, or should I give you a quick? Okay, so the central dogma in biology is that DNA goes to RNA, goes to protein. So the DNA is the book of life. You transcribe it into a message from which you make life. So the message is the RNA, life is the protein, okay? Now that whole process is called gene expression, and we do it all the time. And everything that we do triggers some kind of gene expression. There's an old saying that your genetics will load the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger. Yeah. So the question is, how are you pulling that trigger? And with the research and discovery engine that Pharmanex and Nu Skin acquired when they acquired LifeGen Technologies out of Madison, Wisconsin, which is Richard Weindruck's company, they acquired a whole massive amount of gene expression data. that then and that has been generated by using these chips on which you can load a cellular DNA and look at all the 20,000 genes that are expressing at one time. Yeah. LifeGen, Weindrich and Prola, they have a proprietary algorithm that can look at that data and extract from that data those genes whose expression purely changes as a function of age. And then go and look for ingredients and supplements that will stop or abrogate that change or reset that change to a youthful state. They call them youth gene clusters. So think of it as follows. Imagine if you can reset the genetic orchestra of your life to always play a youthful symphony. And what you've done is you've decoupled your chronological age from your biological age. You're aging at a different level. So it's so the trilogy, the stool, is nutrition, antioxidant protection, and gene expression. And you hear lots of people talking about biohacking and this hacking, that, and the other. But that is what I learned from a conference call with Mark Bartlett way back in 2011. And that has always informed me about why I am promoting the products that I myself use, both on the nutritional and antioxidant side, and also on the so-called age-lock gene expression side. Yeah.
Can you tell us more about what they are and why you've chosen to use them?
In the nutraceutical world, which is not regulated by the FDA per se, I mean, other than to regulate that the ingredients have to be generally considered safe. There are very few companies that I know of that make a performance money back guarantee. Yeah. So when I measure myself on the scanner, I don't have it with me now here, but you remember what it was like, the biophotonic scanner. I am measured in the very lowest possible category, which is not a good place to be long term, because it shows that your body is dealing with oxidative stress, or the rusting stress of life is higher than it's being able to manage. Do you follow what I mean? Yeah.
Yep.
So attached to that particular program, there are now, or there were then probably 4, now there are probably 5 scanner certified products that the company makes a performance money back guarantee on, which says if you commit to the program and take it as prescribed, any of these products that fit your budget for 60 days, we will increase your score or we will give you your money back. And that's what I did. I went from red to green in those 60 days. At the same time, the first nutritional product on that gene expression platform was a combination of Panax ginseng, Cordyceps sinensis, and pomegranate that targeted mitochondrial gene expression. And you're familiar with the mitochondria, I'm sure. The mitochondria basically are the powerhouses of your cell that generate all the energy that we use. And in their clinical studies, they showed that combination, which targets heart, brain, muscle mitochondria, gives you mental clarity, stable stamina and resistance to fatigue, and libido, both for men and for women, sexual vitality. And that also has a 90-day guarantee where you just track yourself on a vitality tracker, how you feel. And in about a week, that thing set in. And I've been on that product, like I have been on the other Life Pack, for the last 14 years. Yeah. So, and yeah, I mean, if I could get everyone to join me on my journey, we would have a happier, healthier, more energetic population. Because here's the problem, Sarah, at least in America, since 1999 or even before, we run the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey of maybe 30,000 plus people. And every time it gets read out, the results always remain remarkably the same. And the results are as follows. Only 1 out of 10 of us in America is eating right. So if you keep it very simple, and there's a mantra that I've used from a microbiome researcher that I've modified. If you eat right and you keep fit, you play with your friends, and you sleep tight, you will likely live long and die quick. So the question is, are you eating right? Are you eating for the nourishment? Are you nourished, or are you just feeding your addictions and fantasies? And without knowing it objectively, how do we know? I mean, a lot of people will feel better, but that's great, and they should feel better. But as far as I'm concerned, unless you can prove it to me, like the doubting Thomas, it doesn't mean anything to me. Yeah. And that, that's also, I joke, my grandmother used to say, never trust anyone who says, trust me. And a lot of people out there say, trust me, you will feel better. Yeah. But whether that is placebo, and I have no problem with placebo at all. Yeah. Whether that's placebo or the actual physical result of taking that supplement, is something that I would like to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's very valid to want to have that tangible feedback.
There's a joke, the scientists, we trust God, everyone else bring us data.
No, that's fair enough. Hans, you and I have had some very interesting discussions about the bioenergetics of what we put in our body, and you've spoken extensively about carotenoids and color frequency. Can you elaborate on that and explain that to us?
The carotenoids are colored molecules that give nature its color. There are 700 of them in nature. There's 50 in our food supply. And then there's 18 that make it into our bloodstream. 3 of those 18 concentrate 1,000-fold in the macula, which is that tissue in front of the seeing part of the eye that protects the seeing part of the eye from that blue light photooxidative stress. And there's a link between that, of course, and age-related macular degeneration. So these pigments, they not only perform these kind of filtering, or I will call it maybe more optimization of how you use light, but they're also a frontline antioxidant defense network. So the light that we use to measure them in your skin is blue light at a specific wavelength that these molecules absorb and then shift to green. Yeah. So that's how the technology works. The whole bioenergetics of our, I mean, we're all electrical signals, but those electrical signals, they're transmitted by chemicals. We're generating energy. I don't know enough about, and I would love to learn more about the whole, chakras, the meridians that all feed into, the aura and the bioenergetics. But clearly, there's something going on there that acupuncture has been able to leverage over the years. That yoga has, meditation has. So at the Healthy Neighborhoods Project Fireside Chat, I'm looking forward to having a person who talk to us about, he's an engineer, talk to us about a quantum measurement device that uses the magnetic dipole of an isotope to measure the magnetic current in your heart. And remember, magnetism is not influenced by the tissue it's going through. So it's much more accurate, but you've got to isolate it from all the other world magnetism, yeah, to measure what's going on in your heart. What are the currents in your heart? Much more accurate than, you know, electrocardiograms. And he promised someday to come back and educate us on the bioenergetics of the meridians and what you know, what's the physical basis or the physics basis. Again, that's just the scientist in me wanting to know, oh, how does that work? You know, how does, you know, it's pretty awesome, it's pretty cool, but tell me how it works. That's as much as I know, Sarah.
Yeah.
You probably know more than I do in this space, but yeah.
Yeah, it's great to know more about the scientific dimensions to this work. And with carotenoids, if people are like, wow, I didn't even know that there were that many colors available in nature, let alone in our food sources, how can we more mindfully integrate those colors so that our body is getting the nourishment that it needs?
You know, you eat the colors of the rainbow, Sarah.
I was going to say that. How
yeah,
many people's parents have said it?
yeah, exactly. I mean, really, here's a story. So, my wife is a painter, and she has a gallery in Little Italy. Very talented painter, also color and beautiful colors. And one day, a a camper van pulled up, and a man with his three children came into the gallery. We got to talk, and I had the machine on the table. So of course he was curious to know what it was. So I scanned him. I scanned his three children. Okay. He scanned in the optimum range. All the children were challenged. They were all down in the red or the orange. And they turned to me and they said, "So what do we do?" And I said, "Duh, look at Dad. What's he doing?" It's and I remember him saying, "You know, Hans, I've been on my children for years, trying to get them to eat more color in their diet, or their vegetables and fruits. And here in 30 seconds, you've brought home the case. I've never scanned them again, but that is the power of an emotional response to a score that you're actually gamifying, but has basis in uh, um, in science.
Yeah.
You know, because you know, facts don't change because you don't like them; they just remain facts. It just is the way it is. Yeah, and I've seen that often happen. You know, people who are vegans who get their score and they're down in the red or the orange, and they say this couldn't be true. Now, when you look at and examine how they're eating, none of them. I mean, I'll ask you, why did the Mediterraneans put olive oil, aside from it tasting good, on their salads? I mean, they probably don't even know why they put it, but the olive oil in the salad helps the absorption of the greasy micronutrients. Among them are the carotenoids, so they help in absorption. Some of the vegans say, "I don't like olive oil, I just take my balsamic vinegar." So the absorption of those nutrients are then going to be challenged, and they score down in the red. And say, "No, that can't be true. That can't be true." I mean, I just scored a person last week. He was down on the red. He said, "No, I eat a lot." Well, obviously, it's not in the format that your body can absorb.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
that's a really good example with the olive oil. Are there other examples like that where there's perhaps misconceptions that are not serving people's health?
We always tend to be attracted by the one thing or the shiny object. I
Totally.
mean, really, your mother and grandmother had it right. Just eat the colors of the rainbow, keep it in moderation, don't pig out. You need protein, fats, and carbs. That's what you need. Yeah. Um, and get that into your body. And at the same time, I would say for people living in the Western world, in cities, I highly recommend you measure where you stand. You either find a scanner close to you, or you actually next year, with the global launch of the 4th generation device, everyone can buy one and have one in their hand. So it'll be a sort of uh, a personal empowerment tool that helps
Okay,
people check that they are nourished and not just, you know, feeding their fantasies.
that's great.
The one comment of Mark Bartlett that sticks with me is, it's truly amazing what the human body and its immune system can do when provided of all the nutritional building blocks that it needs. The question then has to be, are you providing? Are we providing? Are we providing our children with the nourishment? Are we providing ourselves with the nourishment? Yeah. And specifically for mothers, I mean, I have a very, very fond place in my heart for mothers and pregnant women who really, from Nolan's presentation, he will say that pregnant women, because they're doing their job, giving it all to baby, it used to be in the olden days, it was have a baby lose a tooth because the calcium will be going to the baby. But also they see in their experiments that placentas are full of carotenoids. And the mother's carotenoid levels go down by half. Because remember, these carotenoids are of purely dietary origin. If you don't eat them, you don't have them. You're not going to make them. Your body doesn't make them. Yeah. So, and Nolan, in his presentation to us that we review every month, says he believes that some of the difficult pregnancies can be traced back to this depletion of these plant molecules, these carotenoids in the mother's diet. So if we don't start it off there, I mean, it's not, we all as a society will pay in the end, either emotionally and financially, for the collateral damage that ignorance and neglect. And I think that's not, if I make you aware, I create a choice, and a perfectly valid choice is to do nothing. And that's perfectly valid. I don't attach an emotional outcome to what your choice is. My job is done when I created that awareness as an obligation, because that's how we raise the level of consciousness, and that's how hopefully our species will continue to evolve, because you're not born with all the information in your genes. Yeah, you got to learn it. So we have that responsibility. I mean, shared responsibility. I mean, I sometimes ask myself, if a guy is going on a journey and there's an accident down the road, and there's an accident down the road, you're going to tell the person there's an accident down the road, so just be careful. But we won't do that with our health. We think, oh, we're invading the person's privacy. I have no problem in invading people's privacy when it comes to their health. Because I'm losing friends now in my 70s towards conditions that are perfectly preventable. But, I mean, and it's hard, the hardest thing to do is to talk with your friends around their health, because they tell you it's none of your business. Now, you can't tell them what to do, but what you can do is create the awareness and hopefully sow that seed.
It can be an interesting thing to navigate.
Well, I think the questions are the answers, as they always say. You have to care enough to ask the right questions. And then people, I remember when I became an accidental salesperson 16 years ago, I came across a person, wonderful man. He's like the vice chancellor of education in some state, I asked, and he had growing up, he had radio stations in sales. I said, so in all your experience in sales, what would be the question that you would ask people? And he said, ask them to consider. You might consider. When you ask people to consider, very few will say, get the hell out of here, I'm not going to consider. Very few will sort of reject that. But once they have considered and they come up to a conclusion, then it's their conclusion. It's not my conclusion. You might consider. Because we're really, I mean, from a behavioral perspective, we are complicated people that have a hard time doing what's good for us. But you know, it's. I mean, I've been afflicted by it myself. I mean, I smoked till about 25, 30 years ago. I mean, really, think of that. You know, not a good choice. Yeah. There's a lovely story that Mark Bartlett tells about the success of the smoking campaign in Australia that came when they switched from showing the data to getting an emotional response with the statement, kiss a smoker, taste the difference. Because we were driven by emotion.
And now they have the visuals of the diseases on the packets in Australia. Yeah.
There's a bit of a, I don't know. I'm not sure whether the existential dread of being alive afflicts us all in different ways. You know, we take refuge in all manner of places. You know, and I mean, not Mark, but John Nolan came back to us and last year and gave us a 45-minute presentation on the role of carotenoids and nutrition in child development. And the scary thing there is, Sarah, as the child's brain is wiring up, which is called synaptogenesis, from 3 months before birth to 14 years, there are windows of wiring up, cognition, etc., that open only once. And once they're closed, they do not reopen. So wouldn't we do well to tell our pregnant mothers and nursing mothers that this is something that is very important for them to be aware of, because the development of the child's brain will be affected by the nourishment and the protection that they get in those particular windows. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's critical information, and yeah, quite sobering to hear or to think about the impacts of that not being there, particularly the stat you shared earlier, the 1 in 10, and what kind of.
So exactly. So I'm you know, I get really on my soapbox here, Sarah, because really hell is the truth learned too late, I think. And ignorance, while, you know, can be blissful, is often a powerful tyranny. I mean, really. So there are things I don't want to know. I mean, I'm a great believer in denial, as they say. It's not just a river in Egypt, it's a form of coping. but things you don't want to, but you know, I am grateful that my mother put me on her breast. I'm grateful that I was delivered to the world through her birth canal. All these things are now, in this century of huge life science discoveries, are being explained. Why is it important? I mean, I grew up on a farm in Ireland, so I have developed, thanks to the early start from my mother, a good immune system. I don't, you know, I only heard about all the people who've had allergies when I came to the States. with this antiseptic environment. There's a little meme, of this little pudgy 3-year-old that the meme goes, modern days, and he has sort of dirt over his mouth. Modern 3-year-olds can turn on lights, fix computers, blah, blah. When I was 3, I ate dirt. It's so and there's a huge benefit to creating that microbiome when you are exposed to these kind of natural developments. I know a Czech couple who had their children in the Czech Republic. Then in '87, they went through the Iron Curtain and they raised their children here in the States, in La Jolla, and both the children have allergies in this sort of antiseptic environment. As I said, it was unheard of for me back in Ireland to have people say, "Oh, I have an allergy against this or that, or the other."
Mm, 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 mm. And I suppose there's so many moving parts to the eras of change, the systems, the food systems, the social systems, all kinds of different that influence those factors for people.
There's a lot of confusion, and at some stage you don't even know where to turn. But it really is simple. Not easy, but I think it is. It can be made simple. You eat right, you keep fit, you move, you sleep. I mean, it's only recently that doctors will ask their patients, or primary care physicians will ask their patients how they sleep, because if you don't, at the fireside chat, we had a lady from Harvard Medical School who teaches sleep to Harvard medical students. The lesson for me was, if you don't get into NREM2, the glymph system in your brain does not clear the exhaust of the day. And imagine not ever cleaning up your kitchen, not ever doing the dishes. What will that kitchen look like?
Mm. Mm.
So,
Yeah.
I think the challenge is a lot of us have forgotten what fine feels like, or what good health feels like. And you're familiar with that story of how to boil a frog, haven't you? Have you ever heard that one? Yeah. So that's where we are. We are slowly turning up, yeah, the temperature until it's too late.
Yeah, yeah. We normalize unhealthy and unnatural ways of living, being, operating, moving through the world, and wonder why it spirals off into dysregulation, disease, all kinds of different expressions. Like Mother Nature, pretty great place to start.
Yeah,
Bringing us back to what our ancestors knew and had, and what is available for us to cultivate in our own ways and find our ways to integrate that with modern living.
I agree. I mean, I think, just what is it Cicero said, all you need is a library and a garden, and you have everything. You feed the body, feed the brain. And where we live in San Diego, the gardens are disappearing into additional dwelling units. Have you ever seen the film or the miniseries called Yellowstone?
I don't think I have. I think I've seen it.
The most moving one is the prequel called 1883, which is narrated through the eyes of a 16-year-old girl as she comes into womanhood on the Oregon Trail. And she narrates it, and it's really powerful. And in it, she says, our cities are the death of our species. We're disconnected. We're no longer grounded. Yeah. I mean, we have we jealously hold on to our garden, which is like a little mini forest, and it's wild, yeah. And the birds love it, the bees love it, the butterflies come, you know, and we water it and we keep it going. And I think Kurt Vonnegut said, you know, we're the first species that won't save ourselves because it wasn't cost effective. I mean, we,
Yeah, distorted values and priorities,
and we can make excuses, and I don't for a minute downplay the challenge of having 4 kids, holding down 3 jobs, mom and dad working. Yeah. I mean, and they're coming home on the Wednesday night, all of a sudden they've just got all their scores, then, and they're not going to all of a sudden have a dinner of broccoli and salmon and fresh fruit and vegetables. No, it's going to be macaroni and cheese. That's just the reality of that life. I don't want to in any way denigrate it. I mean, there
yeah,
are challenges. Yeah.
and they're
So,
structural. Like, yeah, yeah, yep, absolutely. No, it's not about a moralistic judgment, because lifestyles and people's worlds are complex.
my sign off is always, here's wishing you safe, nourished, and a life in the SCS Blue Zone, and live young, do good, and prosper. Um, you know, it it's a question that we ask ourselves all the time, or that we are asked when we're growing up. What do you want to be when you grow up? And we, you know, we don't often pay as much attention as we need to pay attention to. But over the last 70 years of my place on this earth, I've come to believe that, you know, find a purpose, find a passion, and pursue that passion with determination and persistence. Because, as my friend in Ireland says, life is supposed to be fun. If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And I will be the first to admit that we live in the fact that we have our Zooms, we have our computers, we have the technology, we live in a privileged world. And as a result, we speak for a minority of the people that are out there, you know, making their life happen day to day.
Hans, thank you so much. I love the grounded, applied, scientific wisdom that your contributions bring, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for allowing me to share and wax lyrical. Yeah, so as I was saying, Sarah, I firmly believe that if you steal a person's purpose and give them no reason to get up in the morning because you've taken care of all of their needs, you've stolen their life, and that's evil.
Following Hans's mic drop ending, we continued the conversation and I just had to press record again. So if you would like to hear more of some of Hans's wisdom, please join me for the next little bonus piece of sharing.
We need to sort of take responsibility, and we also need to know what people are trying to sell us. For instance, German is a very descriptive language, as you know, it has very long words. But in German and in France, health insurance is called sick insurance. Yes? So the German and the French consumer knows what they're paying for. In the English-speaking world, we think health insurance will include our acupuncture, our visit to a chiropractor, our visit to whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's not. It's sick insurance for when you get sick. So I don't do sick care. Yeah, I do health care. And I think that it's important for us that we take that responsibility for our health. And if we're not going to pay the sick care industry for wellness, we should not expect them to do it. I mean, in every system, you know, in every sick care system, they're overwhelmed. I'll give you another statistic. So when I started this wellness journey 16 years ago, the first thing I looked at was an interview on TED between Dean Ornish and Deepak Chopra. And at that stage, Chopra said, or Ornish, who was all of the clinical data on wellness intervention, said 75% of what ails us is preventable. We were paying at that stage in the US 2.7 trillion for sick care. Think of that. That 2.7 trillion multiplied by 75%, that's close to $2 trillion. That's preventable. That doesn't mean that we can save it, but what I would say, it's a redirect of spend into wellness. But nobody does wellness because we're not willing to pay for wellness. Now there's more and more of the big players going into that space. Now, 20 years, or let's say 16 years on, we're paying close to 20% of our GDP on sick care.
Mm.
And when that happens, according to one of the people, the economists that I talked with years ago, when we pay 60 or 20% of our GDP on sick care, America goes into bankruptcy. Because we are taking 60% to pay down the debt and another 20% for sick insurance. And then what happens with the remaining 20%? There's not a lot to go around. So, and we can see it too. I mean, when I started work at Agaron Pharmaceuticals, my health insurance or sick insurance was paid for as part of my benefits. By the time I ended with Pfizer in 2009, I had a significant contribution myself to make. And if you look at, there's a book by Halverson, who was the CEO of Kaiser Permanente, which is sort of a health maintenance organization, which focuses on wellness, called The Epidemic of Care. It's very simple. The sick insurance that you pay is calculated very simply by all the money that was spent last year on sick insurance by the insurance companies divided by the people in the program. If the insurance goes up, what does that say? It's a very simple calculation to make. We are getting sicker. And we're all happy, like lemmings, to head to the edge of the cliff. But when you talk to people about, hang on, what are you doing to yourself? You might want to hang on for a second and maybe, take stock of where you are and where that might lead you to. It's, I'm fine. Because it is too difficult a thing to think about. All the important stuff that we need to deal with, like our finances, we give to financial planners. Our health, we give to our doctor. All those difficult things are very hard for us to own. But we need to own them, and we need to have simple systems that allow us to take control of that. So we started off this particular monologue by, blaming food and big pharma for our problems. But in actual fact, we are creating our own problems. There's a wonderful video, and you'll love this one. I put it into the chat, by Ron Finley, Gorilla Gardener. The food is the problem, and the food is the solution. If kids plant tomatoes, they will eat tomatoes. If you plant food, you're planting money. So don't give me it's all difficult. Yeah, it's not difficult. We talk about food desert, and Ron Finley in South Central LA, he's looking at a food desert, where people are trading in their walkers, as they go into dialysis centers that sprout up all over the place. That's sad, Sarah. Yeah. And we need people like you who care enough to tap the person on the shoulder, provide the pattern interrupt, and ask the question. How are you feeling? Where does it hurt?
Mm.
Do you want to make it better? You know, serve the want and serve, you know, find the want and serve the need. And there is kindness to go around. And I firmly believe that the world and the species survives on the simple, unsung acts of kindness by the average person on the street.